Welcome. Me and Brandon start this conversation talking about how what we say and the way we interact with others has a resonance to the collective field. So, in this sense, our words and our way of approaching the current setting with other people is a doorway to make this a better place. And this approach could be exponentially magnified by everyone that's contributing to the landscape. From here, the conversation naturally moved to the current state of the world, including how there's an atmosphere of doom and gloom that we have received and spread by the virtue of globalization. Stick around and let me know if you like the episode. Also, if you enjoy the podcast, now you can support us through the link below. See you around. And we're live.
Oh man,
So, how have you been?
I've been doing pretty good actually, really well. Things have been pretty flowy since last we talked. How about yourself?
Yeah, I can't really complain, to be honest. I also, been it's been quiet. You wanted to talk about something in particular? Can you explain what exactly?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Hopefully we can, I don't know, riff off of this and see where we go.
I'm sure we can.
Lately, I've been thinking about, I want to almost call it pollution, but I've been thinking about, how, and when I say pollution, I mean energetic pollution, in the sense of like me and when I'm around other people, what I'm adding to the energy, right? That's in place, and so I feel like lately I've been in this place where I've been very cognizant of the power of words and the power of intention and the power of expression, and I just became aware, like even if it's just to complain a little bit, if I have like, oh, I want to just poo poo on this thing, or this sucks, blah blah blah, that's an energy, and it goes out there and it mingles into everything else, and sometimes it gets reflected back, and then someone's like, yeah, me too, rah rah rah, and now we're both doing it.
Are you talking about like victim identity and
not even that specifically, just really the feel of it. Like if I'm in a place, it doesn't have to be that, it could be complaining about anything, or I could just say, someone could say something that they like. Oh, I really like football, and then I could be like, I don't really like football. Football's dumb. Okay. let me tell you all the ways I hate football. I just been thinking about how that's a wave, and it's an energy, and it goes out there.
Where do you think that comes from? Is it anger?
I mean, it's just an expression, and at that point it's anger. So whatever that subject is, maybe I'm upset about it, but I guess the key point here is I'm just thinking about how I show up, I think, and when you're engaging with other people, how you show up. And so I can be adding that to the conversation. I can be adding that kind of energy, or I can be more uplifting, or I can speak to the about things, or how good things are going, or I can you know what I'm saying, like it's a choice. I could do either or. I can commiserate, I can join that, or I could do the opposite, or you could do nothing at all. It's just the whole play. Not that one thing's better than the other, because it will of course express along that whole spectrum of expression. But I think what I'm trying to get at here is kind of owning that expression, owning how you show up, and how you're emanating this energy, this feeling, and others can pick up on that. So like just thinking about that, I've been really cognizant of that, where I'm out and about. Like, what am I adding to this? What kind of energy am I putting out there?
Yeah, that's pretty obvious to me, the part that people can pick pick on your energy, because I've had it both ways, right? I've had it in ways that when there's this quality of extreme tranquility, people notice and mention it, like literally mention it. And I also noticed that it can go to the other way. When there's agitation, people also bring it up. So I don't I think, you know, and there's beauty in that. There's this recognition that people in fact have sort of a telepathic understanding. You know,
Yeah.
you don't really need to speak to pick up what someone's going through. And you know, it doesn't even need to go to the realm of um spirituality or anything. One could argue that, you know, there are micro expressions that the human brain has evolved to pick up on, but that doesn't really matter. The whys, I think what I'm most interested in is the fact that people are sensitive to the point that they can pick up on those little clues. And I guess and now what, right? What can I do? What can I do to, you know, I guess propagate these more of a state that I prefer, right? And inherently, it to most people that should be a state of tranquility and a state of celebration, right? That people can, you know, I think it's only normal to want to influence people in a way that the environment gets lifted up. And that comes back always to the point of you have to take care first of your own peace,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's no point in if your true desire is to um let others commune with you and vice versa, and have this spirit of celebration and happiness and joy, you have to be you are the uttermost responsible part, because that's the only thing that you can control. The only variable here is you,
Yeah.
and the rest follows suit to that. So yeah, and after recognizing this fact that people are indeed sensitive and pick up on each other's vibes, what can I do? What How can I honor this desire to bring joy to the earth, and make this a better world, a better community, all that. And that always goes back to me, right? There's no point in too much theory, and unless one realizes this first necessity of me as the responsible part of um improving the my relationships, my community, and all that.
Absolutely. And when you were talking, this is like what you're talking about. What I'm hearing is, it's like how if you want to bring peace and tranquility into the conversation or into the environment, then you have to be in touch with peace and tranquility. Otherwise, we're just talking about it, and we're just talking about it. You can't really put it. You can't bring it forth into the space if you're not in touch with it. If you're not connected with it. And so that's why, of course, you got to work on yourself. You don't want to. You don't want to go out there trying to. Everyone, we need to be at peace, and you don't even know what peace is. Like, how would you? How are we going to do that? So yes, that's what I've been thinking about. Being the steward of my own like energy and my own expression, and how can I show up? Because you're right. When I'm doing this kind of work on myself, and I'm in touch with all of this and my own expression, I couldn't help but become aware of my effect and what I'm bringing and how I'm resonating with other people. And so then I become to know that when you get really subtle with it and you start to see like, oh, what am I adding here? So here's these people and they're talking about whatever, and what am I adding, and
Mm-hmm.
am I adding to the noise? If they're if it's a group of my friends and they're like disgruntled, or they're feeling something, in a negative way, or they're not feeling good about something, am I adding to that? Or can I be a space to, to bring that peace and tranquility in? Or can we shift it? Do I want to shift it? I mean, like there's all these kind of ways to
Yeah.
play with it when you're coming into it. Of course, I think one of the biggest parts about that is being authentic. So of course I want to always have my expression be as authentic as possible, be myself.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean always to be good,
It
right?
does not. It absolutely does not. But I'll tell you this. I don't have to worry about the negative parts coming out, because those just gonna come out. I don't need to be like, well, let me make sure I sprinkle in some negativity just to keep it even. No, because that's going to come out when that is fresh and alive. No one's gonna hold that back. It's gonna kick the door down and rah rah all over the place, and all I can do is stand in awe of it. Like, oh shoot, did I just say that?
Yeah, and I think also that when their part comes up, I really think that when this sense of sensitivity becomes more refined, it it embraces everything, and you are much more precise in sensing bullshit. So your response to that also it is not as wholesome on the surface as you might intend to, but it is honest, as you said. And I think honesty resolves much more i- issues that create friction and disagreement and all that are, in my experience, much more easily resolved with honesty, even if that means to be a bit of an asshole, than to do the quote unquote right thing and say the right thing for the sake of a pre-established way of communication that we think is awesome, or it is healthy, or it is nice and all that. So I think there's definitely that, for me there's definitely that process of discovering how to infuse these exchanges with honesty, even if that means I have to channel a bit of my anger towards that exchange.
Absolutely. I mean, otherwise you end up being caricatures of what you're looking for, right? So you want to be good, and you're like, well, I'm going to be good for goodness sake, I want to do that, and so you advocate and you
It's
try
very
to.
exhausting. That
It's very,
that's very exhausting.
it's very exhausting because you're uplifting, and then you're introducing all of this so basically you'll have an image of what is good, right? And at the end of the day, however close that image is to whatever good is, however close that is, however not close it is, you're going to enhance all of those distortions the more you try to fixate on this image and then express it that way very specifically, because then you're not really being good, you're being your idea of good and whatever that is. And then
Hmm.
that can get real solid and have a very big shape, and it not be
Oh
very
yeah.
flexible for the moment. And so you run the risk of that, of course. And then those are the people that do the most harm. When you see wars and things that are done for good.
Mm,
So when that good is not alive in the present moment, it's alive in itself. It's this idea of goodness, and
hmm.
that's just a snapshot. It's not moving with the up to dateness of reality itself. So um, when I think about these things, uh, I think about it as just being open to it, to meditating on it, to being interested in it, to observing it in others. Ooh, that's a good one. So if you're open to it and you're observing it, then you can see it, right? So if your focus is on whatever your focus is, you're gonna see more of whatever you're focused on. And so if you're looking to see the light in the world and or the good things or good vibes, and then you can start to want to see those things in people, you'll witness them because they happen all the time. They're really quick. Somebody might do something really nice for someone. You can just witness it and just, oh, that's cool. And the more you can become aware of it, then you're kind of, in a sense, you're vibrating on that frequency. You're tuned into it. And so then you're expressing it more and more if that's what you want to do. But you don't have to worry about, maintaining that or driving it, or I'm going to do it that way. It's just you're an observance of it. I like that, so I do it more.
Yeah.
Which leaves the door open for all the other things that might come through. It's all very, of the moment.
That resonates with something I've been thinking about, because acts of goodness happen all the time,
Yeah.
although they are not broadcasted on TV, right? So one thing in relation to that, there's been sort of a gloomy cloud above me, in the sense of being so impacted by all the wildfires going on in Portugal, the recession, all the doom and gloom that's supposedly coming in terms of environmental catastrophes and all that. And I asked myself, if I didn't have access to TV, or if the media, the institutions that create essentially how news are designed in terms of delivery to the public at a more um positive, or a more a brighter light in a way of communicating, this sort of hanging cloud wouldn't be so dark. And I ask myself, if I lived on an island and I didn't have access to TV or news and all that, I wouldn't be troubled by any of it. There's definitely these imposed unreality that news and the things that you consume, the things that you hear, the people that you hang out with, um shape your, essentially they shape your reality, and
Yeah.
and what you turn into, essentially. And as I said at the start of this, true goodness is not televised. And if instead of these more dramatic weight of delivering the news, there would be much more of a report on the goodness of everyday little acts, uh, the way that this dark cloud that I talk about wouldn't be so dark. And I believe that most people have this overhanging cloud above them with all the preoccupation that the system creates, right? It's the recession, it's the environment, it's there's not enough food, there's not enough land to produce food in a 50 years time span. Everything that is delivered as this essence of preoccupation. And this doesn't mean that one turns a blind eye to all of this, but the fact that uh, there's a depressive delivery in the form of news doesn't resolve anything. It never has historically, it never will. And I find that maybe there are little channels and little pages on the internet that have this sort of energetic field of delivering good news and stories that make you smile and all that. And I find that these are the important media outlets nowadays, because it breaks that constriction that everyone these it breaks this hanging dark cloud that everyone has on top of them.
Man. Yes. I feel like let's get into that. I feel like little humans, Oh, little humans, little problem solving humans that we are. Um, it's all very of itself, right? So humans are so ingenuitive, I would say, but a lot of our slant is on what's wrong, and I think that that has been of service to getting us here to this point. We're very interested in what's wrong because that's how we find out what's good. But that kind of focus breeds a lot of information about what's wrong. And so when we have, like you said, our our news and media systems, which are developed by humans, so they have a very human focus and they're focused on what's wrong. So that's what's being broadcasted, which brings more of what's wrong into your awareness. So you're being made aware by the news, and then you go to talk to your friends and you guys share this awareness, and so it's all very resonant. And like what you're saying, that signal is being broadcasted about what's wrong. And I mean, all those things may not be true, but you're living underneath that because that becomes your reality. So now, no more than the weather, which is very visible, here's this idea about what the world is, which is also can be invisible, but you're still living underneath it because you're relating to that. So if you're relating to this bad world or this world in chaos, then that means something to you. That means you're in chaos. So it doesn't feel good. And I think you're right, because at the end of the day, the world is the world. However it is, it actually is that. And then there's how we think about it. And then there's what we say about it. And there's all these levels we're removed. And there's this dissonance that can get tossed up. So this is about this is exactly what I was talking. This is so cool that we're doing this. This is exactly what I was talking about. And it's like, well, what are you adding to that? Because all of those, whatever our idea of the world is, even in the big concept of what a world is, and then our idea about how well that world or is not going, however true or not true that is, that gets distorted and magnified the more we fixate and focus on it.
Absolutely.
So I was like you, I had to disconnect. I couldn't live. I had to. I don't watch the news anymore. Like I had to cut off because I could. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I'm not. I'm just one person. I don't think I'm one node within the collective. I'm not meant to carry that burden of the entire collective on me right here, right now, because
Exactly.
I can't do anything about that. And so, like what you're saying, I think it's about. So I had to disconnect, but not to put my head in the sand, but to just get really
Exactly.
present with what's here. What's here?
What's actually here? Yeah.
I know everyone's telling me this, okay, and maybe that is true, and maybe all that's happening, but what all I can do and what I have the most effect on is what's immediate for me, and that starts with myself, and then
Absolutely.
that spans out into the people around me. And so I can be an advocate. You were talking about the news channels. I am the news channel. I can be that broadcasting signal of whatever. I could ideally. I would say now this is just a matter of how to be skillful, in my opinion. But instead of going out and going, yes, rah, rah, broadcast, positivity, light, like I'm pushing against it. If you're pushing against it, then that resistance is inside of your own signal. And then you're going to meet all the kinds of resistance. So I'd rather be just an observance of it and let that observance be what comes through my signal. And then the goal is to not add to the noise, in my opinion. The goal is to not add to the noise.
100%.
So yeah, that's just what I think. I feel like that's what comes back. It all comes back to you. And what can you bring? How can you show up? How I am a collective node in the human being. Ooh, the human being, all of the human beings. I'm a collective node in that. And so how do I show up? And what about my effect and my outreach and all that other stuff? I think that's cool.
Yep, not to add to the noise, that's precisely it, because the noise is so dense nowadays. There's a field of fear that if you are really interested in, because what we've been saying here, and I think I can speak for the both of us, what we've been saying doesn't mean that you are not informed and actually making a change if you are interested, but not contributing to the noise means not to propagate these energetic fear that the earth is in currently. Even in the when there's a discussion about this, and discussions in the sense of, okay, we are two human beings or more trying to figure out a way to deal with this, to deal with climate change and all that. For instance, these discussions, if I have to, use my time on Twitter to draw a statistical anecdote, most of the times doesn't lead to no resolution. In fact, it does the opposite. It keeps on it keeps on this snowballing effect of fear and adding to the noise, to use your expression. So I think it's very important to go back to, because you spoke of the idea of the world instead of, leaving actuality as it is, and escaping, or seeing really that we don't need to add to the noise, and just to be here right now to infuse the environment we are in
Mm.
with this, with a sense of being and lightness. So the idea of the world, to continue what I was saying, is um is something not real, and this is not a philosophical exercise. It's much more than that. The analogy that I think I used before briefly: if I was in an island completely, and not knowing anything that was going on, because I wouldn't have access to any media outlet, right? My preoccupation about the world and my knowledge about the world would be zero. I would be worried about, catching fish, and getting some sun, and skinny dipping in the sea and all that. And that's my actually living at that set and setting, right? So, as I said, I really don't think this is a philosophical exercise. I think one must inquiry into what is the world. Is the world the product of the amalgamation of information that we get through various sources, or is it in fact the intimacy of this moment right now,
Mm.
that doesn't have anything inherent to it? It doesn't really, like, the recession is not affecting us right now. I mean, we both have food on the table.
Mhm.
Recession, for all we know, is just a concept, right? And again, I must repeat, because I imagine that these will trigger a lot of people. These, what I'm saying, doesn't neglect the fact that we can act on practical matters, right?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that the idea of the world, most of the times, doesn't serve for practical resolutions, but serves for furthering the noise within oneself, and to that extent, furthering the noise to the population at large.
Yeah, I think. Oh man, you said some good words. Propagate. That one got me. Yeah, propagating the noise and all this dissonance. The idea that we have of the world is, it's I've been considering it. It's basically a human technology. We have developed this high contrast, high fidelity idea of this world, and we've got all these nice words. We have all these interesting understandings of dynamics of weather and all these other things, and as we package it in this concept of the world, and it's such a good one. It's such a good map that we can marvel at it and overlook the world we actually do live in favor of the one that we're imagining. When we think of the world, we overlay that imagined world onto the world itself, and we're viewing through that lens. But
100%.
and it's a great lens. It's so powerful. You can use it for knowing a lot of things. You can use it for navigating in a particular way when you are outcome oriented and you're looking for specific results. It serves very well. It's very human. This is what we do. We're so good at this. But also there is the world as it is, and if I would like to bring more of that into the collective awareness, and so that clarity and that insight, to how to let that space in. So instead of creating a new image, a new idea, um, that to replace an old one or to battle with one, I would like to be uh, in observance of the world as it is, and let that awareness be what inspires my action and voice. In the same way
Mhm.
that that old parable or whatever for awakening about the snakes and the ropes, I love that thing.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a room full of people who are saying there's a snake over there and I'm looking at it and it's just a rope, then instead of going, no, guys, that's a rope, and now we're all arguing if it's a snake or a rope, I'm going to go walk over to it and pick it up. And I just want to act as if, you know what I'm saying? So, and then, that's just the expression. They're all marveling, wow, look, he can control snakes. No, it's a rope, guys. But if you can just bring that clarity of what is actually here and speak from that place and be in a observance of that, then I think that helps propagate that signal of how to tune in. Um, we're in a very interesting time, man. I think because we can only talk about these ideas at this depth because of all the conversations that came before this one that's been had, and they sorted all these
Mhm.
things out and they gave us all those great ideas, and because we have those, we're able to look at it in the way that we are. So I think this is a really good time because it seems like the human being, we are becoming very aware of ourselves and the world in a new way, which is more felt, right? Like all of the tools we use that were all of the, and when I say tools, I mean here I'm talking about all the concepts and ideas about being and all the other stuff. We've been refining those for so long, and now I feel like in this time we're starting to see, because we've been so focused on them, we're starting to see the distortion between our ideas of what is and the world and how it is, and actually the world itself. All of that's becoming, I think, more and more clear. At the end of the day, the world doesn't need saving because the world is worlding. And even if we
Love that.
human beings blow ourselves up, then that's what the world wanted to do. And
Exactly.
and it'll go on. It'll keep going, and it'll keep going as it is. So I think it's
And that sense of insignificance is freedom, right?
yes, it's so much more. Now what? Now I'm like, okay, game on. I'm here. The stakes have been made clear. I'm on the board. I'm the piece. What am I gonna do? Versus whereas I'm trying to solve the world or solve for myself. Like, how do I do this right? And how do I? Well, instead, I'm realizing I am. So I don't need to worry about how do I need to do that because all of that's included. It's very human to have these considerations because we are in such a shape that we can, and we do, and that is what informs all of what we do. And so that informs all of the systems that we live in and all of the media and the ideas. These are all quote unquote man made. And so we're in a sense where it's a great way to look at ourselves because we're magnifying ourselves outward and in our construction and the things that we build and we make and we live under. So I kind of lost my point, but it was a thing.
We are, according to the Hindu philosophy, we are in the Kali Yuga. Have
Mm,
you ever heard of that? So, the Kali Yuga expresses this concept that we are at the end of a cycle. There's I think four different cycles. Kali Yuga being the most chaotic one, and it really feels that we are at the end of the cycle. If you now if we steer our attention to what is happening, which seems a bit the opposite what I've been saying so far, but if we really look into the information that we have currently of all the mayhem that is happening, we really, I don't really think that there has been such an intense time in history. I'm very well aware that we are not in a world war as there have been
bro.
two before, but I really think that that doesn't matter for what I'm saying. We are really in the brink of something because these at this time it's my perception is that every subject is rupturing at the seams.
Yes, bro, you get to say this. It's never been like this before. We get to say this because we're at the leading edge of existence. We get to say it. Look, the people who got to say it before, no, this is the most important of times. They meant it, and we're looking at them like obviously not because we're ahead of them. But at the moment when they were saying that, it was, and so we get to say that it's not. You're not wrong. Like yes, the things have
Yeah.
never been this way before. You know,
Yeah.
we are. This is the best time to be alive. This is the most important time. It is because it's right now. And like, how cool is
Exactly.
that? How cool is that? You get to say it because they got to say it. Now they're dead. They had their time. They were on the stage. They did their tap show and their dance, and then they passed on. And now it's our chance, and we get to say it.
I really think, man, that uh because I've seen the argument that, we have never been more safe than before. We have never been, with more longevity than before, and all that. I'm very well of that. But if you look at all the system as it is currently, and it's happened in the past, like political structures have been rise to great success and have fallen and all that. But what I'm speaking is a rupture in every regard, and it's global. The state of the world nowadays, you can't separate really Eastern from Western.
Yeah.
Every little point of society is in the phase of rupture, in this phase of Kali Yuga, complete chaos. And it's this dooming cloud that I've been experiencing, that has been hanging over me, about what's going to happen, and all these fears and anxieties that is really are. And I have the notion that, to one extent or the other, everyone is in these fear state, fear prison, really. And yeah, I think it's as you said, we are in the leading edge of something.
Kali Yuga, indeed. There is we are. I feel the same way that rupture is a great word. It also reminds me about the fools that persist in folly and become wise, and so that's what I'm reminded of here. I'm always zooming out. Let me share this perspective I like. I love to look at the human as a whole thing, right? And I think we're babies, man. We haven't been here very long, and I feel like we're still figuring out what it means to be a human being. And this has been one long conversation we've been having with ourselves and with existence. And that's been shaping how we've been treating each other and treating the world. And we're growing up. We are growing up. We think, of course, what a privilege. We think, of course, to see ourselves as an adult individually, and we're all this stuff, and we're so, we're so smart because we're the we have all of what was before us, and we're like, yeah, well, we're not as dumb as they are, right? Well, they thought the same thing. But ultimately, like any child that's growing up, they're always looking ahead and more trying to be older than they are. And so I think the universe has never been human before. And it's figuring that out and what that looks like and what that means through us and our going abouts. And that doom and gloom that you're talking about, I think, is part of the human expression, because we are ones to worry and we are ones to be concerned. And what if I could do anything, and what I'm interested in is to allay that energy, like not to make it go away, because it has its place, and it'll go away when that's done, or whenever we're done with it. But rather to be at ease. Like, I like to ask this, you'd ask the fish. The fish is flapping around and he's in the water, but he's not going to drown. He's in the water. He is made for this. And we are like the fish. We are the human in our environment. We are the human at home. We are the human in an environment that is not only the one that birthed us, but one that we've seen fit and had the ability to make even more accommodating for ourselves. Um, and so this is the human experience, and we are at home, and we are the fish in the water, and we cannot drown. You will not drown in your experience. And we are being called, in a sense, to show up as a human, whatever that means, and add our voices to the collective and do our little dance. And you're going to dance, damn it. There's no way you're not going to dance. I don't
Yep.
care what you do. You can lay on the floor, and that's your dance then. The spotlight will zoom right in on you as you're on the floor and not doing anything, and that'll be the
Yep.
show. Like, it
Yep.
doesn't matter.
And that's natural too, and that's the universe, the interplay of the universe too, as it is the climate crisis, as it is war. You know, we tend to find separate nature, right? We put at the side of nature all the beautiful things, the forests, the rivers, the mountains, and when it becomes to be actions led by the human being, we attest it of being unnatural. So we say that wars are unnatural, bad things sponsored by your fellow human man are unnatural. When if you look at the history, and you don't even need to go that far back, but you can, this cyclical component of destruction and rising again, destruction and rising again, is the nature of the planet, right?
Yes.
If you go back, like, you know, in spite of we not knowing exactly what happened with Atlantis, as far as we know, they had super advanced knowledge, and even though that was the case, the civilization just crashed, and for some reason or the other, even if it's natural, an asteroid, or if it was themselves, it disappeared. So there's no really intellect or intelligence that can, you know, rescue the power of nature.
Ooh.
You know, there's this inherent cycle of destruction and rising up again, and so on and so forth. So in the end, it's really, we are at the mercy of God.
Yeah.
I'd like to say it like that.
And I think you don't even have to look back. You can see war is very natural. You can see it everywhere. We can see it. Ants. You want to talk about war? The biggest war on earth is not humans.
Exactly.
They are at war with each other.
That's natural.
It's very
that's
natural.
On the animal realm.
Yes.
Yeah.
In your body, your immune system is at war. It is a whole giant battle. You're up here walking around, ha ha, hey, I'm just talking, having a great time. Meanwhile, your body is fighting everything, and it is fighting for survival, and that is a war. And you want to talk about regimes rising and falling? We could apply that same thing to any individual and any individuation. Be it a bird from being born to death, that is a rise and fall of its own sovereign reign, and it comes up and it battles and it does its thing and it lives and it's amazing, and then it dies and it's over. And that is the same thing we're seeing in our societal structures. They rise and they fall, then they collapse and they rise again. And just as any human being comes out, they rise and fall. You know, they come up, they do their thing. That's a war. It's a struggle. Part of being alive is to push against and I mean, I think that's just very natural, and we're very much just an extension of this entire situation. This is
Absolutely.
So I personally think that it would be to our benefit as a race of human beings, or to just become more aware of that, to have more of that present in the collective knowledge and the collective focus, because that ease of being in this situation, it gives you more energy to do what you actually want to do and to be invested in that, instead of being, being all tied up.
One of the issues being that the problems and all the conflict that we have must be fixed. Without a more ease approach to this question, I don't see an end to anything that's happening so soon, because the conflict is approached by conflict itself. The way that people approach the resolution of conflict is with conflict, the conflict of ideas, the conflict of political parties, and all these things that have nothing to do with practical things that you can actually do to fix a thing.
If the question is always what's wrong, and that's your starting foundation, then you're never going to get to the bottom of that. It will always give you new things that are wrong. And so that, I think that core slants, core question is a fundamental thing to the human experience, and we're always looking there. And so it's really hard to see that you're always asking what you're always looking at what's wrong, and so you're getting more answers about that, and so then you're living in this world of what's wrong. And so if we can just switch that a little bit, and then that opens up the rest of it, right? Because then you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're never going to be happy with anything that you've designed or made or that you're living in, because in the background the question is what's wrong. So how do we shift that? Because that's big. That's not just a me thing. That's a human thing. I think that's a collectively, that's our slant. And so we get real busy trying to fix things and fix this and fix that and fix this and fix that. And as we all know, the more we fix things, the more we have to fix what we fixed.
Yeah. That's true.
I think that we're just magnifying. Humans are so at odds with themselves, so as to speak, could be said. Nature's at odds with itself. But we're just, in a sense, we're just magnifying that, being at odds with ourselves and the environment. And so we're just seeing that ripple out everywhere. So now I think we're in an interesting position because we're in a space where our basic needs are met. Food, social, and shelter. We're the basic in general, very general. I know there's people, there's plenty of people that aren't out there that aren't.
Of course.
But in general, most people's base needs are met. The human body is fine. It is okay. It is not in survival mode. But here's this beautiful mind that's been designed to survive, and it's looking around, and it was, made in a probably much more fast moving, gotta live, gotta eat, gotta poop kind of world. And now we have all of this. The game we're playing is completely different than the original equipment that we had installed, so to speak. So, I think it's all that power turns in on itself because it doesn't have anything to do. And also, I feel like we're trying to process the huge, big, giant world here on your little node by yourself. And all of that kind of stuff just generates more and more stress into the system, and it's all very of itself.
Yeah.
So anyway, how can we be an avenue for releasing that tension? I think is through our own discovery of our own ease, and the very way of things, that actually everything is okay as it is. It's okay,
That's what matters. I mean, you'll never find contentment in the world because the world is always changing, and with this particular birth that we are in, we certainly are not in a favorable time in history. There's this cyclical. We are in the chaotic part of the cycle that is basically self-destructing, and I feel that ultimately this energy of violence and fear has to express itself, and it has to run its course. There's really nothing. Unfortunately, I don't think there's really an end to this so soon. It has, in my vision, it has definitely to express itself. And I certainly, I don't mean to appear more morally on a moral high ground, because I certainly contribute one way or another to this noise, even if it's, for instance, to me it is crazy that two sides of the political spectrum define and morals bleed into them, and why does why you must belong to one side, which by doing so excludes everything of the good ideas that the other side has. there's really it's I understand that there's a general um agglomeration of ideals that one person might resonate into, but the way I see it is like soccer, you know. If you belong to one team, you completely neglect the other team and only root for, you know, your team. So uh, the political spectrum is the same. You could you completely have to shut down to the marketplace of ideas when you quote unquote enlist in one of the political parties, right? And completely neglect the whole spectrum of arguments and suggestions of the other, and vice versa. It's completely crazy to me, and this is one of the things that, you know, I also struggle with. I'm not. I don't have any moral high ground nor solution to what we are talking about. There's definitely just this sense that, you know, these conflict between what I think and the next person thinks has to run its course, has to clash, has to, you know, has to burst in flames, and yeah, it's not pretty, but I don't think there's really a resolution.
Yeah, I think particularly when it comes to politics, I think those are systems we had in place that we designed to govern ourselves, and they were very helpful. But like anything that's a game that keeps being passed on from one generation to another, it's gotten lost. And so what was once supposed to be to help us has lost its focus, and now it's very about itself, right? So the political regime is managing the political regime, and we're all in support of it. And it's really what we wanted was ways to us help ourselves and protect and steward the land that we live on, and all that other stuff. And instead we're looking at the land, and we're looking at each other, and we're not liking what's going on. But instead of addressing that, we're trying to address the political side of things and hope that that trickles it all down. But we're very much in the world right now, and we're very much around each other right now. And I think that system just needs a refresh, really. I don't know how we would do that. You know, we've been playing this Jenga tower for so long. Who knows what piece you'll pull? But it just bears consideration that that's what's going on. I think I don't blame the political system. I think it's just very of itself. It's a caricature of what it was supposed to do, and I think that's what happens when you do anything. When you have any idea about how to go about things, but then we focus on refining the idea versus the thing, you know. And I think that's very natural. I think that just happens, especially when we're passing something back, you know, to the next generation, to the next. It's just like the game telephone. So, you know, what the big idea that was first whispered in that first ear has just gone through all these iterations, and it's lost
Yeah.
sight of what it's supposed to do, and we've lost sight of what it's supposed to do, and we're so busy trying to fix it that we're not fixing the world we live in and the actual really issues we want to address. So it's kind of like that. But what are you going to do? We got ourselves in this situation. We'll get ourselves out somehow. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I think the conclusion to this is basically that at least that's what I believe, and that's
Yes.
my conclusion from all of this is that there's no way to find resolution in the world, especially in this cycle, in this Kali Yuga. There's only the resolution, in fact, is within oneself.
Yes.
And if you make the discovery that the resolution cannot be found in the world outside, there's only way to look which is within, right? So this to me is the only resolution. And I restate again that all this doesn't mean that you are practical about things, doesn't mean that you ignore practical things that you can do to, you know, better the environment, better your community, better your relationship with loved ones. It simply means that what matters is peace, and If if peace is true, it cannot be fragile to the point of being broken by the circumstances of the outside world.
Yes, because you can't wage peace, and peace is at peace. Peace is at peace, and it's a really hard. I think peace is funny, like when you first start looking at it, because it kind of doesn't make sense when you keep thinking about it. Because I think the idea that most people arrive at when they come at the idea of peace, they're like, it kind of gets mixed up with some other things, but the peace is already present. We don't create peace. It's already present. Like the world is absolutely, existence is absolutely fine, and it is at ease with everything exactly as it is. It is not in conflict. If it was, you would find that to be some sort of substance that you had to move through, because it would be resistance. Like you couldn't even get your thoughts the right way because the world would be at conflict with what you were trying to do. But it isn't. It's at peace, right? And so how do we arrive at peace? We just have to recognize it. And then that peace isn't of course isn't like you said, it's not sticking your head in the ground. It's not that. It's like, okay, I am a living being. I am here. I'm going to die at some point. All that's great. Now what? Because what is the alternative? I think I think of like a video game. And then the video game, it's game on. Win or fail, win or lose, that's the whole game. The losing is part of the game. The enemies that show up on the screen, those are part of the experience. When you get the lives, when you're winning and you're getting all this stuff, and then when all that goes away and you lose it and you die and you get the game over screen, wow, what a ride. It was all one thing, right? It's all of itself, and it's all supposed to be that way, and you're at peace. Even though on the screen everything's crazy and you're pushing all the buttons and you're doing all the dodging and everything's it's chaos and you might make it, you might not make it. Everything's going perfect. The game is actually functioning correctly, and you're actually at peace with the game. You're not in conflict with it. You're showing up. You're pushing the buttons. You're responding as appropriate.
Yep.
And so that's the kind of same energy we can bring into our life, because you're only going to do it while you're here. And then you don't have oh gosh, what a privilege to be as invested as you are in your position and your ideas and your beliefs and how you feel, because only you can feel the way you feel, and only you can care about the things you care about the way that you care about them. And so it is your honor. It's a privilege. It's just here while you're here. And the alternative is you're not. Yep. You're going to have eons to consider that, to experience your non-experience. So while you're here, it's game on. The game's on. What buttons are you going to push? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And then you can be, and that's the kind of peace that's the kind of peace that I'm talking about. The screen can be chaotic. You could be pushing a bunch of buttons. You might be doing all sorts of stuff and moves. You might be failing. Your health bar might be down, but you're at peace with this situation as it's unfurling. You might be riveted. You might have your blood pumping. You might be excited, but at the same time, there is a peace there because it is all okay. Everything's going just how it's supposed to be. And if we can bring that peace very down to the felt sense level, then you bring that peace with you in all things that you do. You are of peace. You are at peace. People will notice the peace that you are. You are magnifying it, because peace is really hard to see. But you will magnify it with your expression, and then you make room for other people to be at peace. When
it's contagious.
It is very contagious when they don't have to navigate you, navigating them, navigating you, all that other stuff, and you're just there and you're just present. And you're at peace, and you're here. You're responding to life. I think a lot of people's idea of that is you just stop. You just, I don't know, turn into I'm just here, and but it could be very present. It could be in mid-conversation. It could be very alive. It can even be angry. Peace can be angry. Like, it can be all of those things, but it just ripples through, and you're just very present, and you're just very here, and you're not adding to the noise. And so people aren't having to navigate your distortion of them and their distortion of you and all this other stuff. They just get to be present with you, being present with them, and you become an avenue through which peace becomes expressed and made aware in the collective, just through the peace you have with yourself. So yes, it very much starts here. You can't fix that world out there, because that world out there doesn't exist. That's just your imagination. You can't fix those people and what's wrong with them, because that's just your imagination. That's how you think of them. That's how you've considered them. That's how you're conceptualizing them and their actions. And you can't fix that, because it's just your idea. And you can't fix any of that. But what you can fix is what's here, and how you are relating to yourself, how you are relating to the world, and yourself in the world, you can fix that. That's where you will find that peace. And then, like I said, I'm just repeating myself, but that when you are at that peace, that emanates from you, and it's a very living thing. It's not dead and flat. And I mean, maybe you are, maybe you it up and you sit on your cushion and you just vanish. That's the thing. Maybe you want to do that, but it can also be out on the street. Hey, I'm walking here in New York getting your pizza, and it can be very alive, and you can look around and actually be present with the world as it is versus the one that we're imagining.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, it's not bound to any circumstance. So what you said, what rose in my mind was the question, what really matters? And to end this, because we are at
Yes.
1 hour, I'll share a tweet that I seen from Lex Friedman. I don't know the tweet, I don't have it open, but he said that every morning he contemplates his own death, and I found it such a practical thing to make you notice what matters, and to feel that deeply, because when you contemplate that, you are bound to die, right? Everything that rises, or that is born, is bound to die. And in that type of meditation, what really matters becomes obvious as it is. And that is the case with many things, tragic events or tragic situations that one goes through. These contemplation is natural. What matters, your loved ones, and all that come are the first things come to mind. So yeah, I just wanted to share that practical thing in these troubled times, to to inspire and flourish your art, and maybe you can pass that to your loved ones and to your local community.